To our continuing coverage of Sunday's attack in Boulder. The latest information that we have this morning is that 2 people are still in the hospital recovering from burns suffered in the firebombing targeting of the Jewish community. Investigators now say that 12 people were hurt and they were gathered for a weekly remembrance for hostages held by Hamas. Every weekend they would meet on the Pearl Street Mall for this. Investigators say that the suspect confessed that he wanted to kill supporters of Israel and he would do it again. He is now facing state and federal charges. Joining us this morning to discuss those charges is our 9 News legal expert, Whitney Traylor. Whitney, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, the suspect, as we just mentioned, has been charged with at both the state and the federal level on different crimes. Tell us a little bit about what charges he is facing and what penalties could come with those.
Yeah, he's facing some real serious charges and the penalties are extensive, including life in prison. And so on the federal side, they've charged him with commission of a hate crime. Now, what's interesting about this is it's normally it's up to 10 years. But here, because it was associated or affiliated with attempted murder charges, it bumps it up to a life in prison, because of those charges. And so that's on the federal side. They're also contemplating a terrorism charge, which they're looking at, and that's when he took an act of ideologically motivated violence, which it appears to be the case. And then, of course, on the state side, he's got 16 counts of attempted murder. That can be up to 384 years. 2 counts of using an incendiary device, that's up to 48 years. 16 counts of attempted use of an incendiary device, that's 192 years. So you're looking at years and years, possibly life in prison because of that federal charge. And the judge hit him with a $10 million cash-only bond.
A big question that's kind of floating around right now, and we've seen this play out in Colorado before. People are questioning his mental capacity. How does that factor into all of this?
Well, that's going to be a major factor, and I suspect that may be part of the defense. We don't know yet, but when somebody acts this violent and this sort of unreasonable, that, of course, their mental capacity comes into play. And so there's going to be 2 parts to that. One is, will he put on an insanity defense, which insanity says, I didn't understand the difference between right and wrong at the time of the commission of the crime. So that'll be a question, but there's a lot of evidence that shows he did know what was going on.
Right, based off what he said.
What he said, he'd been planning it for a year. He wanted to wait till his daughter's graduation, all these other things. And importantly, Jordan, I think this is very relevant. He said he tried to obtain a firearm and was unable to do so because he wasn't a citizen.
So it was flagged at some point.
Exactly right. And so here, this is where I have to mention the gun regulations, because this is a situation where you can actually point to, it's hard to prove a negative. Hey, do these gun regulations save lives?
Right.
In this case, you can argue that quite well, because had he had a firearm, especially if it had an automatic capacity to it, he would have been able to kill many more people. And he's actually said because he wasn't able to get the weapon, he made the Molotov cocktails, which still hurt people, but nobody has died at this point. So I think it's just relevant to look at this is potentially a situation where gun regulation really worked.
Interesting. Now, another big part of this story, too, is, of course, that his visa was expired. He was in the country illegally at this point whenever he committed the crime. What does that mean for this case as well?
Well, I don't know if that's going to add anything to it. I mean, certainly if you're in this country, whether it's legal or not.
You have due process.
You have due process, and you're still responsible for complying with our laws and regulations. So he'll be prosecuted to the full extent, but I don't know that his immigration status will have a major factor in that. Certainly in the political discussion, and in the potentially with the jury, if that could influence people, but as a matter of the legal issue, I don't think so.
So what happens next here?
Yeah. So next, so he was in court on Monday. I think the next hearing is Thursday, where he will, I think, formally be charged. And I suspect there may be more charges. Certainly, if anybody dies, then it's going to change from attempted murder to murder for sure. And there's, there were 8 people initially, then it got bumped up to another 4, so it's 12 folks. There may be other folks who are, as the investigation goes on, we might find other people who are injured. There might be other co-conspirators. Some people are suggesting he didn't act alone. So I suspect the investigation will reveal more charges and possibly more defendants.
All right, we shall see. Whitney, thank you so much for helping us understand that a little bit better. Right.